I'm a little brought up on this. So this is looking at the concept of changing our body composition. What are the goals I'm going to set myself? What's realistic? What's healthy? Okay. So when we are looking at men, then for lean athletes, so cyclists, distance runners, swimmers, even sprinters generally are pretty lean these days. Right? For a lean athlete, someone who's competing and is in good shape, their body fat percentage is going to be in the range of 6 to 13%, depending upon what their sport is, what the requirement for aerobic work is. Right? For a healthy non-athlete, me, hopefully, right? Then for a guy, we're looking at 14 to 17. Then we start transitioning into what's unhealthy, right? 18 to 25% body fat for a male is considered quite high, right? Particularly once we're up into the 20s. And anything over 25% body fat for a male is considered obese, all right? There's a difference because when we go through puberty, guys release more testosterone. That drives muscle building and hypertrophy. Girls release more estrogen, not only, but more. And that drives laying down fat, right? So then we have a difference for the girls. So for an athlete, again, depending upon her sport, somewhere 16 to 20 would be considered healthy. For a non-athlete, 20 to 24. Starting to get unhealthy, 25 to 31. And for women, obesity is classified as greater than 32%. Body fat. All right, so quite a large difference here. Okay. What I think is key on here is this column, right? Especially when we're trying to set goals. For a male to function, right? To keep yourself warm, to be able to mend membranes, to be able to create hormones, a man has to have, I don't even like the 3, but 3 to 5% body fat. When you measure some of the Tour de France guys and the marathon guys, they're hovering around 2 to 3%. That is not safe, and it's not healthy, okay? For girls, this is a problem, because for girls to function and be healthy, they need a minimum of 12 to 14%. But many female athletes are down at 10, 11%. And if they're at 15%, their goal is 10%. But no female should have a goal of 10% body fat, because that's way below what she needs to stay healthy. Right? So again, when we consider the kinds of roles that you as a group are likely to go into when you leave college, teachers, coaches, therapists, personal trainers, right? These are important concepts to understand, because we need to change this attitude of, I've got to make my athletes as lean as possible. Right? That needs to go away. It's better than it was. Right? When I was younger, and I was heavier, but when I was younger, they told me every night, every single night, you're too fat, we're not teaching you that skill. When I quit and I became a coach, I would come to the States to coach in the summer, and they would put the girls on the scale when they left the gym at night, and when they came in at 6:30 in the morning, they would put them on the scale, and if they put on half a pound, they weren't allowed to train that day, they had to condition all day. Now, that was in the 80s and the 90s, and things have moved on, thankfully, a little, but not enough, I don't think. Right? Not enough. Because I don't need to be 10%, I don't need to be 2% to do the job properly. Right? So, if we look at the nutrition side of things, where is my... down there. Okay. If we look at the nutrition side of things, then we are trying to understand what we call calories in regular language. If it's generally kilocalories is the technical term. If we use the word calories, without the kilo, it should have a capital C in front of it. Generally in the mass media, we don't see it written like that, all right? But we're trying to understand this idea of calories. How much energy does the food we're consuming contain? Right? So when I look at an apple versus a fat-free banana muffin, which one has more calories? Who's voting for the fat-free banana muffin? Okay. Who's voting for the apple? And some of you are sitting on the fence. Okay. All right. So the apple has about 80 calories, depending upon the size of it. Fat-free banana muffin, kind of, I mean, not a mini, a kind of moderate, is nearly 300 calories. Right? So you pick a fat-free banana muffin because you think it's a low-calorie, healthy option, and actually, it's not. Low-fat does not mean low-calorie. Right? So we have to start reading labels, reading ingredients, making sure that we're eating something that we really want to put inside our bodies. Because what they do to that when they take the fat out to make it taste good is not something you should be putting in your body. Eat a regular banana muffin and do a bit more exercise. Right? Fat-free stuff, nix the fat-free. Salad dressings, those are poison. Do not eat fat-free salad dressings. No, 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 no. Bad, bad, bad. All right, so energy balance. All right, we're going to look at energy balance. So energy balance is exactly what it says, and we can represent it using a seesaw. All right. On one side of the seesaw, we have the calories from the food that we eat. Right? So this is my calorie ingestion. On the other side of the seesaw, we have the calories we spend exercising. This is my calorie expenditure. All right? So when we're looking at energy balance, this is what we're considering. Okay? The ratio of calories eaten versus calories spent. Okay? If my calories this side are higher than my calories this side, I'm going to lose weight. Okay. If my calories this side are higher than my calories this side, I'm going to gain weight. Right? So, for most people, what we're looking to do, especially if we're looking at our athletes, right? For most athletes, we want a balance of calories in and calories out. I don't want them losing weight because they're probably already quite lean, which means if they're losing weight, the chances are they might be losing muscle mass, which I don't want because I need them strong and powerful, right? And I don't want them putting on weight unless we're purposely doing a muscle gain periodization program, right? I don't want them putting on weight because if they put on weight and it's fat, it's going to impact performance. And if they put on weight and it's muscle, it's likely to slow them down a little bit. So it depends on, again, what position they play, what is their event, what's their game. Okay. So, on this side of the equation, right, calories expended, calories spent, we have actually three elements, right? We have the biggest one, the biggest use of calories is resting metabolic rate. So how many calories do you need to lie down in bed flat and not move? A lot, right? You've got to feed your brain, you've got to keep your heart muscles contracting, your digestive system is still working, you've got to maintain good temperature, right? All kinds of stuff going on, and you're just lying there. So the majority of your calorie expenditure is just to keep your body ticking over. And resting metabolic rate is actually quite difficult to measure. You have to go and sleep overnight in a lab so that they can measure it first thing in the morning, and it's all very tedious and boring. So you will see often basal metabolic rate, BMR, which is a daily measure. They take it during the day and they say it's relatively close. You have to go in, you're not allowed to have eaten for 5 hours. You have to go in and sit for an hour and then they'll take a basal metabolic rate, right? So they use it interchangeably, although it's not quite the same thing, right? So BMR, RMR is the largest number of calories that you use in a day. Okay? Then we have how many calories do I do during my physical activity. So that could be brushing my teeth, it could be getting in and out of the car, it could actually be walking to school, right? It could be all the crazy stuff you guys get up to. It could be walking around Walmart, playing with the dog, right? Anything goes in there. The third one is actually called TEM. It's the thermal effect of a meal. So consider the last time you ate a really large meal, and then about half an hour later you're going, okay, I need to take my sweater off, I'm really hot, because in order to digest that food, the amount of energy that we lose when we digest food in heat is tremendous. We lose like 60 to 65% of the calories in the food via heat. We're actually not very effective at converting those calories into energy to move. Right? So that's why you get so hot after a large meal, and that uses quite a lot of calories to do. Right, to digest that kind of food. But in this particular textbook, they kind of ignore that portion. So if I can change resting metabolic rate, since that has the largest number of calories, then I can impact calorie expenditure and fat mass loss. Right? When we exercise, particularly if we do high intensity anaerobic work or if we do aerobic work, we change our resting, our BMR, for X amount of time after the end of the exercise session. So if you went down to the gym at lunchtime and then you came and sat here, you're using more calories while you're sitting here listening to me than you were in this morning's class before you went to the gym. And how long that effect lasts depends upon how hard you worked, how long you worked, what you did, all that kind of thing. It's not a permanent, right? You don't permanently change your resting metabolic rate by training once. It takes consistent training over time, and then you don't change it very much, really. So let's come back to this idea again. The math is not that difficult, all right? If we change the ratio, if we change the balance, I'm looking at a difference, right, of 100 calories a day, right? 100 calories a day equals 10.5 pounds a year. Right? So that's a nice amount of weight change for someone who is not obese. Slightly different if you're looking at that population, but if you have someone who's a little overweight, 10.5 pounds in a year, they're not going to put that back on if they lose it like this. Right? 100 calories a day. All right, so I have several options then. I can eat 100 calories less and do the same amount of physical activity. Right? That's that snack that makes me feel good in the afternoon. I don't want to give up my snack. Right? So, choice 2, I can eat exactly what I eat, and I can do 100 calories more work. Well, that's a pretty fast 2 miles. Right? Which I may or may not want to do, or I may or may not have time to do. Or, choice 3, I can go down 50, and I can go up 50. And maybe that is very achievable. But the outcome is the same, because what we're looking at is the tip, the amount of tip, right? The difference between the two. If the difference is 100 calories, I will lose 10.5 pounds. sense? So it doesn't have to be agony. And again, it does really depend upon the population. If you are working with someone who is only a little bit overweight, it's a little bit harder to get the body going and losing weight, right? If I'm working with someone who's very overweight, they're going to lose weight quite quickly initially, and then it will slow down a bit, right? So this is like a general picture, but I don't have to ask them to give something up or do more than, right? I can just tip the scale a little bit on both sides and have a big outcome. One of the things you have to be aware of with basal or resting metabolic rate, if you do a very low calorie diet and you restrict your number of calories dramatically, your body goes, what the hell is going on? I'm starving to death. Maybe I'm stuck on a mountain, right? And it will slow your metabolic rate down to conserve calories because it thinks you're in danger. So really, really low calorie diets mess this up completely because you think, oh, I'm dropping this down, but this comes down as well. And then you end up with the same problem, right? It works for a short while and then it stops working because your body just adjusts to the number of calories you're now not feeding it, right? Does that make sense? The other thing that we'll talk about a little bit more as we look at the food issues, that when you eat carbohydrate and you store carbohydrate in your body, it is stored with water molecules. So if you've done any hiking or backpacking, you'll know that water is pretty heavy, right? If I've got to have 3 liters of water in my backpack for the day, I'm very happy later in the day when I've drunk quite a lot of it, because it's heavy, right? So when I store carbs, I store water. And so the reason people like low carb diets and they go, oh, I lost 10 pounds. No, you didn't. You didn't lose 10 pounds. You lost some water. That's not losing weight, that's losing water, right? So low carb diets get a lot of buzz because they appear to be very effective in the short term. They're really, really bad if you're an athlete because carbohydrate is the #1 fuel source for moving. So not a good plan, right? But it doesn't, once you've lost the water weight, when you eat the carbs again, you put the water weight back on and your weight goes back up. You didn't lose weight, right? So that's an important point when we're looking at supplements and diet and nutrition and things like that, okay? Because right now there's ridiculous amounts of nonsense going on with keto diets and high protein and no carbs and all this other junk that's out there, right? Just eat a balanced diet and move. That's all you need to do. All right? Where are we? Okay, we've got room for a couple more. All right, so if my goal is to change my body composition, again, depending on who you're working with, that is typically likely to be, I want to weigh less. by which they mean I want less fat mass, not I want to weigh less, because we don't want them losing muscle mass or bone mass, right? If you're working with athletes, changing body composition may be I need to gain muscle mass, which is really hard, right? So, diet, nutritional intake, and physical activity are both important components to achieve this, okay? So let's look at diet first of all. My primary goal at any point in time must be to maintain adequate nutrients to stay healthy, for my body to work properly. Right? Again, remember that if the goal is weight loss, we are probably looking at fat mass loss, unless this was a large strength athlete who's now not competing anymore and wants to drop some muscle mass so he can actually go to a regular clothes store and buy some clothes instead of having them handmade for him, right? So, if we're not exercising and we're on a calorie restriction, then we might start losing muscle mass as well as fat mass, and that's not what we want. So it's important to combine them. When we're looking at the nutrition side, we've got to make sure that we drink plenty of water, and that comes back all semester, right? We're looking at hydration, it's really important. We want to make sensible fat choices. That is not no fat. That is not a sensible fat choice. All right? Anybody ever known anyone who's anorexic? Right? I knew a girl who was anorexic, and all she would eat was carrots. So she would sit in class and peel her nails. Right? Because she wouldn't eat any fat, and membranes are double lipid membranes, and that means they need fat in order to make a membrane. So her nails would just like literally just peel. It was very bizarre. Very bizarre. All right? So we want to make sensible fat choices. Right? The other nice thing about including some fat, think good things, right? Avocados, nuts, beans, right? Make good fat choices. Real butter, not fake bleeding margarine, right? Proper food, okay? Then the other good point is that it improves satiation. So that feeling of being full up, and you stop eating sooner. So you eat less calories. Right? Minimize empty calories. So additional fats or bad fat choices. Sugars, extra sugar. Right? Alcohol. If you're an athlete, you shouldn't be drinking anyway. I know you do, but you shouldn't because that's dangerous. But for the rest of you who aren't athletes, we're going to limit how much alcohol. Not have any. Right? I'm not a proponent of not having. Because the minute you go, I can't. Right? And there's no reason to put yourself through that. So, right, but I can have 1 or 2 glasses of wine. I don't have to drink the whole bottle. Right? We don't want to reduce calories too dramatically. All right? We don't want to cut them down to 700, 800 calories a day. That's silly. My dad's on that kick right now. It drives me insane. Right? We want a deficit of about 500 kilocalories a week. Okay. One of the ways we can do that is keeping portions smaller. So go out, if it's important, and this is something you need to do, go and buy yourself a cereal bowl, a plate that is smaller than your normal plate and cereal bowl, so that visually you look like you're eating the same amount of food. Because it's all a game, right? It's a game. How can I not make this really painful and ugly? Because if it's really painful and ugly, I'm not going to do it for very long. Right? Okay, I talk too much as usual. Have a super weekend, and I will see you on